in Paris because they discovered a major international problem that would change mathematics. Metal, 1 kilogram of metal, that the mass in metal no longer weighed, no longer had the same weight as before. Yani the mass inside of metal was decreasing, which means the weight of metal, the standard weight of metal, was not the same. So 1 kilogram of metal, if you're weighing on a scale, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ مثلا, if you're weighing on the scale, you put weight on the scale, metal on the scale, and you think you're paying 5 kilograms of metal, when in reality it's not 5 kilograms, it's 4 kilograms, or 4.5 kilograms, and you think you're getting 5. The weight of metal changes. Why? Because they discovered in 2008 that the mass inside of metal over time decreases. No one ever thought that this hard object, is essentially كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Everything on the earth eventually goes away. And what stays? وَيَبْقَى. What stays, what remains. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. It is the presence of Allah Ta'ala. It is Allah Ta'ala that remains. So if you want something to stay, leave it with Allah Ta'ala. It is very important because Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala directs our attention to this day. Yani the verses that I recited in the second rak'ah of the Quran, very, very important. Surah Al-Baqiyah talks about this moment of when people, on this day of judgment, people will be judged. And on this day it determines who rises and who falls. خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةُ. When that moment happens, that waqi'ah, that day of judgment, when it happens, لَيْسَ لِوَقَعَتِهَا كَاذِبًا. No one will deny it. So you can't deny it that the day of judgment isn't real when it happens. Everyone will يُصَدِّقُهَا. They will confirm it. And that day is so serious, it will be like a mizan, be like a scale. خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ. Some people will khafida, it will bring down. Other people, rafi'ah, it will raise up. Meaning, some people will go to heaven, Jannah, and the attribute, the sifa of Jannah, is that it is levels above, it's darajat. It is 7 levels, and it's several levels in height, going up. And the sifa of the hellfire is that it also has 7 levels, but it's 7 levels going down. So while Jannah is a hierarchy, darajat, nar, the hellfire, is a lowarchy. It's darakat, right? Which is why the munafiqun fil darak al-asfar, they are in the lowest part. And lowest means at the bottom, not in the middle. So rafi'ah means some people are elevated. Why are they elevated? Because of their deeds, their baqiyat that they left and deposited with Allah Ta'ala. And others are lowered because of the absence of those deeds. Or, even worse, they did the deed and they did it for someone else's pleasure. For others to say, oh, you did this deed. Remember the very fearful, scary hadith on the Day of Judgment where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will bring certain people and He will bring a man who said, I learned ilm for you, and I taught it to others. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will say, you lied. You learned so that people could call you an alim. And they did that. You learned so that it could be said, you are a scholar. You learned so that people could call you alim, and they called you alim. They did that. That was your thawab in the reward. Nothing left. Nothing remains. And they will, in the hadith, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will take him, the angels will take him on his face and throw him in the hellfire. وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ, in another riwayah, they said the man will be cast into the hellfire and he will fall with such shiddah, such force, because of actions that he did that were for the pleasure of people, that should have been for the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And so that person cast into the hellfire with such force, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the inside of the person's stomach will come out. Inside of the entrails, the intestine, as they're falling down and down and down into Jahannam, the gravity, the force of the fall, will cause their stomach to open and their intestines to come out. And the people of hellfire, the people of Jahannam who are in hell, will ask them, فَاجْتَمَعَ أَهْلَ النَّارِ عَلَيْهِ. The hadith says, the Prophet said, that the people of Nar will be in hell looking and gathering around the person as he's falling. And they will say, hey, Rajul, like, hey, person, we know you. We recognize you from the dunya. We knew you from this store, or we knew you from this school, or we knew you from this place. Why were you here? Why are you here with us? And the man will say, the Prophet said, he will say, I used to tell you, I used to command you to do something, and I didn't do it myself. I used to say, don't do this. I used to tell you not to do, but I wouldn't take my own advice. And then I used to tell you, do this, do that, do this, and I wouldn't practice it myself. And the man will continue falling and falling and falling. May Allah protect us from this. These are the kinds of things we don't need to do. These are not baqiyat, they don't remain. And as a matter of fact, all of the amal, all of the actions we do affect us in one way or another. But there are actions that we may think are acceptable by Allah Ta'ala, but Allah Ta'ala rejects those actions. They are not baqiyat as-salihat. And they are certainly not khayrun inda rabbika. Those are actions that should be done for Allah's sake. There should be done for that, but in reality, we make a mistake and do them for others. Or we do them for a different reason. It should be done for one reason. We donate to the masjid or to donate to sadaqah, and we like to have our names on the plaque. So we like for it to be known that so-and-so gave this money, so we want this to be called the room of so-and-so, the building of so-and-so, because we like that attention. That is an act that Allah Ta'ala rejects. That is an act that Allah Ta'ala does not accept. And that is an act that Allah Ta'ala tells us in this part of Surah Al-Kahf, it looks good to you. It looks good. Al-mal wal-banun zina. It looks good. There are actions that shaitan likes to decorate for us, to draw us in, to deter us, to trick us. So the nafs says it looks good, feels good, sounds good, must be good. And that's not the criteria of qubul from Allah Ta'ala. Acceptance by Allah Ta'ala is not the criteria. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Look at the one. Have you thought about the one who takes his desires as his God? Whatever feels good, looks good, tastes good, sounds good, they do it. And they think that because outwardly, externally, it looks the same as the sunnah, they think it's accepted. They see the Prophet pray, externally the Muslims pray, they think that their prayer is good, but they're praying not for the same reason. They're not sincere, they're not praying for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. Or they're conducting themselves, they're acting in one way, but their heart is someplace else. Allah Ta'ala does not want that, nor accept that. So baqiyat, if you want to deposit something of value, you want to do an action of value, you want to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get near to Allah ta'ala, you want that reward, and you want to hope for that reward, then you've got to do it in the right way. You've got to do it in the right way. It's like marriage. You want to marry somebody, so you have to approach the family in the right way. Can't take the sister and be like, hey, let's have, private relationship, and, don't tell your parents, and all of these things, and hey, just, let's move in together. All these things the modern people do today. La, you have to do it the right, and then expect barakah. You say, Bismillah. No. The method, the way it's done, must be proper. That's the salihat part. So when we do something, we do it with the criteria. And that criteria is, it must be done correctly. We have this in our jobs in the professional atmosphere. If it works like that in the dunya, every employer has standards. If they're going to hire you, they want you to do the job a certain way. If you do it wrong, it's not acceptable. And if you keep doing the job wrong, you'd be fired. You get kicked out. So Jannah must be pursued with the right way. And this is the point of this ayah here. So baqiyat, brothers and sisters, Surah Al-Kahf, verse 46, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us not to be fooled by the designs, by the attractions of the dunya. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us work in the dunya, but not work for the dunya. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people of Ahlul Baqiyya, people who work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and invest in our akhirah in the right way, in a'mal that are salihah, actions that have the qabul, the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to bless us in this way in this life, bless our children like this, and our grandchildren like this, and all of our progeny like this, and raise us under the banner of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta as-sami'ul alim wa tub alayna يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. After Isha, every time after Isha, a few minutes after Isha. Because also the time changes, brothers. You know, this weekend the clocks, go back 1 hour, inshallah ta'ala. Isha will be like 7 or 6 o'clock. I think. Next, when the time goes back, it will be 6 o'clock. Isha. Now it's like 7, but time goes back on Sunday too. Until the end of the year. Okay, after because Maghrib will be 4:30, which is impossible for me to come in after Maghrib. But I'll try. We'll see, inshallah.
Usually that's what they plan for every winter.
Keep it at 7? Yeah. 7.
It was last year, 2 years ago, 16. Before that was 7. Because 16 they did because Imam Nabi wanted to give a lecture. So they moved to 16.
6:30 is good.
6:30?
I could do 6:30.
I'll tell
Yeah.
the Khalid to change.
If it could change 6:30, yeah, we can do Isha and right after Isha.
I'll tell him.
That's excellent.